You ever get that feeling, like you're the one watching, but something else is watching you? Like the night's quiet and still, but your skin crawls anyway? This story's about a young cop, Officer Dane Mercer. One night, what started as a routine missing person call on Providence's waterfront turned into a nightmare no one could have seen coming. Because sometimes the things lurking beneath the surface aren't just shadows. I'm Bourbon, and this took place in Providence, Rhode Island. October nights there feel like wet knives against your skin. Cold rain slicing through your jacket, streets glistening with neon reflections from closed cafes and faded signs. Dane Mercer was just a year on the force, eager but already carrying that tired look cops get when they realize the world doesn't run on justice. It runs on secrets. His partner that night was Detective Sara. Quiet, sharp, the kind of woman who didn't waste a word unless it meant something. Together, they made a solid team, a mix of Dane's raw energy and Sara's calm precision. The call came in just after midnight. A missing woman, last spotted near the city's old waterfront docks. On paper, a simple case. But Dane told me later, I don't know why exactly, but the moment I heard that call, I felt a chill crawl up my spine like the night was telling me to watch my back. You ever get that? The kind of gut feeling you can't really explain? Keep that in your mind as we follow them into the darkness. They drove through rain-slicked streets, headlights piercing an almost living fog that curled and twisted around rusted lampposts and cracked, uneven sidewalks. The Providence waterfront at night held a certain heavy stillness, the kind of place where stories go to sleep and shadows stretch longer than the truth itself. The air was thick with the cold bite of early October rain, mixing with the faint, salty tang of the Seekonk River just a stone's throw away. You could hear the distant rumble of freight trains rolling past the port of Providence, their horns echoing like mournful calls in the night. The scent of wet concrete, damp wood from aging docks, and the faint aroma of fried clam strips from late-night food stalls lingered in the damp breeze. Dane and Sara pass-boarded up warehouses once bustling with fishing boats and cargo, their weather-beaten walls veined with rust and graffiti. The old Providence River walk was quiet now, its cobblestone paths slick with rain, and the famous water fire braziers that once lit the river with flickering flames were cold, waiting for another season. As their cruiser pulled up near a cracked old payphone, one of the city's last remaining relics, the eerie static hissed faintly through the receiver, a spectral soundtrack to the woman's last known footsteps. Dane's boots splashed on the puddled pavement as he stepped out, the beam of his flashlight cutting through the mist towards shadowed docks tangled with forgotten nets and tangled ropes. Sara scanned the waterline through binoculars, her eyes steady in the darkness, waiting for any sign, any movement. The buildings nearby, the historic Providence Biltmore Hotel and the old arcade building, loomed in the distance, their ghostly facades watching silently over the scene. Minutes stretched thick with tension. Then, through the drizzle and the rhythmic slap of waves against the pier, came a faint whisper, a single word that pierced the night. "Hey!" Dane froze mid-step. Sara glanced at him, eyes narrowing. "Did you hear that too? Maybe it was just the rain, or the exhaustion twisting tired minds." But something, a quiet, insistent pull, drew them toward a battered boathouse. The wooden doors were nailed shut, partially hidden in shadows, the paint peeling, almost blending into the night itself. Inside, Dane's flashlight revealed a cracked phone screen blinking urgently with an unanswered voicemail. The woman's fragile, trembling voice trembled through the static. "Help me, please." A cold shiver ran down Dane's spine, something darker than mere fear, a creeping sense of being watched, waiting. They couldn't know then that this boathouse held more than empty silence. Behind moldy walls and rusting beams lurked secrets tied to the highest corridors of the city's power. Torn photographs, threatening notes, and documents scribbled with the names of politicians and businessmen unfolded a billion-dollar scam hidden in plain sight. And Dane and Sara? They had just stumbled into the eye of a storm far bigger than any of them imagined. Then, without warning, the boathouse door slammed shut behind them. hard enough that the sound echoed through the still night air like a gunshot. Their radios died instantly. The crackling voices of backup and dispatch were replaced by an eerie silence that pressed in from all sides. In the near darkness, their breaths hung heavy and tight, thicker than the rolling fog that wrapped around the docks like a shroud. Every muscle in Dane's body screamed for movement, but he stayed still, heart pounding, hands trembling, trying to quiet the panic clawing at his ribs. Sara's eyes searched the blackness, shadows dancing at the edges of their flashlights, freezing time with each hesitant breath. Yet, somehow, Dane found his footing amid the rising chaos. Though his hands shook and his throat was tight, he signaled Sara with a slow, deliberate nod. Without wasting a second, he smashed the side window with a well-aimed kick. Glass shattered, tiny shards tinkling into the cold water below. The icy air hit them like a slap as they climbed through the opening, escaping what felt like a trap set to silence them forever. Outside, the distant wail of sirens grew louder, backup finally arriving, rushing through the wet streets, their headlights cutting through the fog like lifelines. Then she appeared, the missing woman, bruised, exhausted, terrified but alive. She was the whistleblower, the one who held the key to the nightmare hidden beneath the city's surface, the one who knew the truth behind the polished veneer and the political masks. What Dane and Sara had stumbled into was no ordinary call anymore. This was the heart of a billion-dollar scam, tangled in corrupt contracts, bribes dripping from luxury offices, tied to the city's most powerful figures. And the storm they had unleashed, it tore through the city's hardest shells with relentless force. Arrests shook the mayor's office. Headlines screamed across newspapers and airwaves. Investigations spiraled deeper. The media frenzy was unstoppable. When the dust settled, months turned into years, and the city slowly moved on. Sara Kim did what many officers in her position had to do. She quit. Just like that. Some scars, she told a few close friends, are too deep to patch up with talk or therapy. The memories of that night haunted her. The shadows, the silence, the feeling of betrayal by the darkness that seemed to have swallowed her whole. Dane Mercer, on the other hand, stayed. He kept patrolling those same streets, but that night never left his eyes. He carried it like a heavy badge, something that no reflection could erase, no matter how many shifts or weekends passed. Every time he drove past the waterfront, he'd glance at the battered boathouse, the chipped paint, the dark water beyond, and remember what they found in the shadows. Because that night had changed everything. It had shown Dane, in the clearest way, that sometimes the quiet calls aren't routine. Sometimes the shadows you chase are bigger and darker than anything you could have imagined. And no matter how deeply buried, the truth tends to surface sooner or later. He learned that the hard way, standing there in the cold, fending off fears that clawed at his mind. The scars from that night, both seen and unseen, etched themselves into his soul. It's funny how a single night can teach you that bravery isn't about ignoring the darkness. It's about facing it, even if the cost is your own peace. And here's what Dane still believes, what he's come to understand with quiet, understanding eyes. You do what you can. Sometimes that's enough. And sometimes it's everything. Because in the end, what matters most isn't how many shadows you've chased or how many truths you've buried. It's the courage to face the darkness, knowing that sometimes all you have left is the light you carry inside. And that, well, that's what keeps him going. That's what keeps pushing him to drive past that water's edge, stare at the dark waters, and remember, sometimes the biggest truths are hidden just beneath the surface.